Quick Tip Tuesday, FSBO's Let's Chat. Today I want to have a conversation with you about some points to consider when you are trying to sell your property on your own. It's really difficult for me to bottle up 21 years of experience and put that into a little quick tip. But I'm going to do my best to share some hurdles that I have watched other people encounter when trying to sell on their own, and just to give some dynamic and understanding to how the market is. The market is not the same, and selling a property has changed quite a bit. In 3 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, everything is completely different, and that's to be expected, right? Things change over time, and the way processes occur and procedures, that's all different, and it's good to have someone who is knowledgeable and experienced to help you. I know everyone wants to save money, right? I mean, that's the goal, but if you think about it, we our bodies, our children, our family, our friends, they are probably some of the most important people in our lives, right? We don't try to perform surgery on them instead of a surgeon. I know we try to do things and try to do self-care and things like that, but at the end of the day, when we need someone to take care of our loved ones, we bring in a specialist and we bring in a professional. And then we're talking about our largest asset, so having a professional on your side to walk you through and guide you is super important. So I wanted to share a couple tips. And then also, we met recently with a lender who told us some of the things that are challenges for her from a lending point of view when she is working with For Sale by Owners. So the first part I want to hit is showcasing your property to reach all potential buyers. Right now, obviously buyers are outpacing the property, so that's why making a for sale by owner choice is very lucrative and very exciting, because there's a chance that you could sell on your own. I've watched some people try that and they've made some mistakes or got into really complex situations, or even left tens of thousands of dollars on the table because they underpriced their property. So super important there in that aspect, that you are reaching all of the buyers possible, so that you have all of the possibility of getting the best terms when it comes to an offer. Some properties are still receiving multiple offers, and so that's imperative that we know that all the buyers have been reached. And by doing that through a means of advertising, which we are experienced as realtors to do, that will help you get the better or best situation in your sale. Second would be the showings, the financing, the pre-approval. I'm gonna kind of lump those all in, but pre-approval is huge. There are certain price points that I have sellers that request a pre-approval or a proof of funds. Some buyers probably aren't going to be real comfortable handing the seller that letter directly. I mean, that does say some information that would be revealed obviously at offer time, but we do that prior to scheduling showings on certain price points. That way we are sure that we have qualified buyers. Another practice we like to do is just get the pre-qualification no matter what. That tells us several things throughout the process. The type of home that buyer can purchase. Some homes aren't always going to qualify, or there'll have to be some changes and modifications done before closing, and then who's going to pay for that. So that's something to be privy to up front. Also knowing about the buyer's situation. Do they need closing cost assistance? What type of loan are they getting? That tells us the time frames. That tells us the complexity of that transaction. So a pre-approval is huge no matter what when we are showing buyers, but most importantly, it's definitely required at certain price points. And then we get into showings. So having a third neutral party is sometimes good. That way that the buyer can feel at ease, they can take their time, they can ask questions that a seller can sometimes take as offensive, and really maybe it's not meant to be, but a seller also has that emotional complexity involved in a transaction because this is their home. They think they're doing everything right. They don't want to be questioned, and so that sometimes makes things a little bit more difficult. And then we get into the actual financing itself, and then just figuring out all the complexities on how to put that into an offer. So the final part that I wanted to touch base on is the actual paperwork, the flow, the terms, the negotiating. That's sometimes multi-phased in our transactions. And then just having that paperwork so that it's very clear and all of the expectations are set up for both parties. So there's no confusion, there's no misunderstanding, there's no, high emotions later when someone asks like, well, I need to do this, or my lender's requiring this, or I found this in an inspection. What do we do? It's really hard to know what to do when that's not something you are specializing in every single day. So, if you have your job and your career, obviously that's what you're really good at, and those are your talents and abilities, just like those are our talents and abilities as realtors, to help everything mesh together. Will everything be perfect when you're working with a realtor? Absolutely not. Probably there are going to be things that are going to shift or change, but having that professional perspective helps you to know if this is a trend, if this is a problem, if this is a red flag. It's really hard to decipher that if you're not living it day in and day out. So also now let's kind of touch base with what the lender said were for sale by owner challenges when she's involved in those transactions. So lack of negotiators or professionals. So it's just really difficult to even get a contract established and get that written up. And then the contracts could vary so much because sometimes people are downloading those online. They're just trying to create their own, or maybe they go to an attorney. So we've got also additional riders that come with the contracts, she indicated. So as issues or just changes or things come up throughout the process, again, that further documentation in that form or that rider isn't available because they don't have access to that. She also mentioned there's a lot of weight back on the lender too. So that for sale by owner then starts to look at the lender for help and guidance, right? And so does the buyer. So everyone's trying to lean on someone else who knows what they're doing, and that puts extra pressure on her. Also, obviously takes away from her ability to service other clients in those situations. Long closing dates, just long times to get the contracts back themselves, again, because they just don't have readily access ability to those. But then that impacts the rate locks for her clients that are, the buyer clients, because she has to lock in a rate and those rates are only good for so long. And then the buyer has to pay a penalty or they lose that rate altogether. So just keeping things moving forward is a big point that she also mentioned, just because again it takes so long to get the contracts and paperwork and no one really knows what they're doing for certain. It ended up costing the buyer more, usually because of the rate extensions and just not having things done in a timely fashion, to have someone prompting them and guiding them and taking care of a lot of those issues. Appraisal related issues, then they get into, she said, a lot of sentimental attachments, and it's really hard for the buyer and seller then to negotiate a value based on the appraisal results. So that again takes longer time, and sometimes that just doesn't even stay together because the seller does get upset and there's no one there to walk them through that or to go over the reality that maybe the appraisal is accurate and the purchase price that they had agreed on is no longer valid. She said inspections obviously are not required, but a lot of people do them, which is great, but they need guidance, and that's not really what she's there to do as well. And then, of course, a lender doesn't want to see the inspections, so coming to her or any lender for that matter with those results and trying to get help through negotiating any repairs or adjustments makes that a little muddy and a little more complex. And then she said the one thing is that obviously for sale by owners are looking to save money and they don't want to pay someone to handling it, but then they're expecting a lot of other parties like the lender or the title company to hop in and give free guidance and do things for them. And she said it just makes it, again, really complex and puts extra stress back on those parties that, yes, they know how things work, but again, like that's not their specific area of expertise. If she's in lending, then her focus is on and abilities are in the lending avenue, which does tie into a contract, but she's not privy on how to handle every aspect of the real estate transaction like a realtor is. And then sometimes she said a buyer wants an appraisal before making an offer. And so just again, going back to the steps and how things flow and what's customary. And then, again, lack of information. So with other professionals. So as a realtor, we have like kind of a database of people we can continue to refer you to for different parts and components of that process. So for insurance, for appraisers, inspectors, engineers, whoever we need to get involved. And she just doesn't have as readily access to that. And there's really not any like online database where she can send those buyers to get those names and contacts. So again, just takes longer in the process, and she's not always able to help in some of those aspects. And then the one thing she pointed out, which I thought was the most interesting, was that she said there are no disclosures. So when you list a property with a realtor, we have disclosure forms, and those allow the seller to identify and disclose anything that's been wrong with the property, any repairs they've made, what they know is broken or not working. And it allows the buyer to acknowledge that. So that's a huge risk reduction for the seller and also for the buyer. Both parties, again, know what's going on. They've shared information. We sign and acknowledge that. But she said in a for sale by owner transaction, there are no disclosures. So the buyer really has absolutely no idea in some instances what they're purchasing or what they're getting into. So I just thought it was super helpful to just share some of this information to you if you're considering for sale by owner. I understand and I respect that everyone wants to save money, but sometimes in the end, that's not really what happens. And so we are here as real estate professionals to help you. I can guide you I can, make sure that everything goes as smooth as possible, and then share my 21 years of experience and knowledge with you in hopes that I can help serve you to the highest capacity. So if I can help you and you're considering for sale by owner, let's chat. Let's just go over what's going on a little bit more in depth and see if that's a good choice for you. I'm here. You can call, text, message, comment below, or stop by, and I look forward to talking to you soon.